What is shaken, Internet? Welcome to the Weekly Coin, a weekly podcast discussion forum for the game Hearthstone, Heroes of Warcraft. I'm your host, Salts, and this week's topic is Blizzard Balance. Welcome to the Weekly Coin, a weekly show discussing topics from Hearthstone, Blizzard's CCG. Last week we discussed legendaries and just how much they brought or took away from the game. I asked if people thought the game was pay to win, so let's look at some responses. Mindaugus Kostivkovus, wow that's a mouthful, writes, Hearthstone is not a pay to win game. The winner most of the time is who has card synergy effectiveness and the best built deck. Also, as in every card game, the main component is luck, drawing the cards you need at the right time. Thank you very much. Jake Parrott writes, it's absolutely pay to win. Even without legendaries, you can't get the good cards you need unless you specifically focus on one deck. The only way to be competitive is to play non-stop or pay out the nose. If you'd like to submit a comment or topic suggestion, you can either add one to the comments below or send an email to the.weekly.coin@gmail.com. So today's topic is Blizzard Balance. Blizzard has released one big patch for Hearthstone so far and has some more balance changes down the line that were announced at BlizzCon. What I'd like to talk about is how this balancing can affect the game as a whole, as well as how the changes specifically affect the meta of the game afterwards. So, the first big patch back in the day was where Blizzard took the nerf patch, the rogues and druids, and did some major changes to priests, along with other things. This is significant for a few reasons. In most other CCGs, this kind of change the card mentality doesn't exist. In Magic the Gathering, they can't change a card's text or values after they sell you the card. Yes, in reprints they can change them, but that takes a huge undertaking and doesn't really happen very often. With a digital medium, Blizzard really has the ability to change the cards rapidly. So, with great power comes great responsibility. Making a 1-point change to a card can cause a massive swing in that card's effectiveness. At that point, you're talking about impacting two things, the game as a whole, and any strategy or playstyle that involves that specific card. For example, the Devious Ringleader used to be a 2-3 that combo summoned a 2-1. All they changed was its health from a 2-3 to a 2-2. And it has caused the card to be significantly less useful. Before, if you couldn't combo it, it was still a 2-3 for 3, which was pretty good as most minions, which is as good as other minions anyway. But now it's a 2-2 without the combo. Even if it does get comboed, both creatures can be taken out by a variety of cards now that they couldn't before. Things like Holy Smite or Arcane Shot now take out the big guy without needing a follow-up. Or even a spell damage into an Arcane Blast or Arcane Explosion, something like that. That 1 point of health has made a huge difference in the card's usefulness. So the point I'm getting at is that the effectiveness of cards is subject to change for both better and worse. I'm not here to complain about Blizzard nerfing rogues or buffing warriors or anything like that. I just want to talk about how they're doing this balance, why they're focusing on what they're focusing on, and how it can impact the game. Currently, Blizzard seems to be focusing on the highly utilized cards. Devious Ringleader was a prime example. As before, it was a devastating coin combo on turn 1, probably the best turn 1 combo, turn 1 play in the game. The most recently announced changes are pretty similar. Mind Control for Priests is being jumped up from 8 mana cost to 10 mana cost, and the Starving Buzzard for Hunters is losing a point of health, down to 1 health now from 2. Mind Control is a highly used card for many priests that a lot of people are complaining about on the forums, so it seems sensible to change it a bit, right? Well, I wouldn't be so quick to jump to that conclusion. So to restate it differently, Blizzard is looking at any cards that people are complaining and are highly utilized. Everyone complained that Devious Ringleader was strong, and he was, so they nerfed him. Now a lot of people are complaining that Mind Control is strong, so they are going to nerf it. A lot of people are complaining that Starving Buzzard is strong, so they nerf it. See a pattern here? It seems that Blizzard is focusing on what people are telling them. This is a good thing and a bad thing at the same time. It's good that Blizzard is using the power that they have to change cards that people are seeing as broken. It's a bad thing that they're letting the community decide what is broken. I'm trying to think about this positively. The Devious Ringleader was that example was great. It was a universal that the card was strong and needed to be cut back. Mind control is a slightly different story. Some people find it broken, and others find it just a device to play around, a card that you need to play around when you're playing against priests. When Blizzard nerfs something like Mind Control, you're going to get mixed reactions. And remember, they didn't push it up 1 mana, they actually pushed it up 2 mana. This is a 2-turn leap in the game, which can be a huge setback for priests. Now you have to wait until turn 10 to use your Mind Control, and you have no spare mana at all to follow it up with a small spell like Power Word Shield, Holy Smite, Shadow Word Pain, or even your hero power. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Mind Control didn't need to be changed. I'm just using it as an example. People complained, Blizzard changed it. I just think they changed it pretty drastically with that 2 mana versus 1, and I feel that these first few patches are setting a precedent for what Blizzard can and will do in future patches, so they should be discussed. Let's look at that last example, Starving Buzzard down to 1 health from 2. This change is generally seen as mediocre by most accounts. The Starving Buzzard can now be killed by nearly any minion, or the 3 targetable hero powers by themselves, the druids, the rogues, the mages, in a single turn. It makes it less effective, sure, but the reason that people are complaining about Starving Buzzard recently is because of the OTK Hunter deck that has a lot of popularity now. If you're not familiar with it, the OTK stands for One Turn Kill Hunter deck. It consists of saving a lot of cards in your hand until around turn 7 or 8, dropping 1 or 2 Starving Buzzards immediately, a couple of Timberwolves and Dragonhawks, and then using Unleash the Hounds to give them all +1 attack and charge to do a huge chunk of damage, usually lethal, in one single turn. The Starving Buzzard at the beginning lets you pull a lot of cards while putting down all the beasts, effectively letting you put down more beasts as you continue to draw more cards. So the reason that people are complaining about the card isn't due to its health, it's because of the way it interacts with the Unleash the Hounds combo. So what Blizzard has effectively done with this nerf to Starving Buzzard's health is actually weaken the card in all other deck strategies, making this OTK style an even more tempting deck to build. It would almost seem that they're encouraging the deck more. I have no problem with this deck. I actually like it. I would love to try and play it if I had all the right cards. I just like to think that this kind of balance change will limit other possibilities for Hunter decks and stifle creativity. And stifling creative decks in a CCG is not a good thing. So honestly, it seems like Blizzard is focusing on the right cards, which is great. But the way they're doing this balance is questionable. Raising Mind Control to 9 mana? That's a better first step. Try that. Lower Starving Buzzard's attack to 1 from 2 instead of its health. That might actually help the core problem a bit with the OTK deck. Or maybe not, since it's only 1 damage. But it is focusing on weakening the core problem with the card. Now, let's think about that for a moment. In other CCGs, people build these wild and crazy decks that are really strong. Physical CCGs can't go in and say, that card now says something else. It just doesn't happen. Instead, what most CCGs do is introduce counter cards in subsequent sets, effectively negating how strong previous cards were, because now there's new cards that are stronger because they work against them. With this kind of strategy, you could buy new cards and presumably beat older cards. It really makes for a good business model, at least. Now, in Hearthstone, Blizzard has already set a precedent for changing cards up, weakening or strengthening them as they see fit. Remember, it's beta, so, that's how it works. What this does is actually prolong the life of the cards, meaning if there are some really useless cards out there that no one ever really plays, Blizzard can come in and change them to be the best card in the game. Not that they will or they should, mind you, but they can. On the other hand, if someone spends their hard-earned dust on an amazing legendary, or gold legendary even, they will be a sad panda when it gets nerfed into the ground. Especially if that was what they were grinding all their dust for and disenchanting all these cards to get. But now that's not going to stop Blizzard from doing it. Is it a good or is it bad that they're balancing the cards this way? Well, from a high-level perspective, you can say that right now we can't say any changes are bad because the game is still in beta. But I do worry about this precedent being set by Blizzard of changing the cards quite drastically, in my opinion. Now, don't get me wrong. I like and even expect Blizzard to take advantage of the system and change cards that need changing. I'm looking at you, Battle Rage. This is a step in the right direction. And that little thing about Battle Rage was actually because Battle Rage has been changed, and I think it's for the better now. This is a step in the right direction and will be great to help balance the game out. But I am concerned about 2 things. First, who Blizzard is listening to. Obviously, there's a huge amount of luck to Hearthstone, but skill plays a major role, especially at higher levels. Is Blizzard going to be balancing the game around the high level of play or the lower tiers of competition? Based on what we've seen so far, I would expect the lower tiers to be the key market for balance changes. This is where a majority of the players should be at, and balancing the cards that stomp newer or entry-level players every time is not a bad idea, in my opinion. But you have to watch just how these lower-level changes will affect the higher level of play. The fact that a Hearthstone tournament came out at BlizzCon makes me think that Blizzard will keep this in consideration, but I do have some concerns over how a minor change to fix something on the low end could be exploited or severely impacting to high-ranked play. My second concern is why Blizzard is changing these things. This really stems directly from the Starving Buzzard change we discussed. The fact that they're changing the card is great, but the fact that the change has nothing to do with the most popular Hunter deck, and in fact weakens almost all other Hunter decks, is a really big warning sign for me. I already said that 1 point can make all the difference in a card, but in the case of Starving Buzzard, it doesn't affect the most utilized strategy right now. In the case of Mind Control, they moved it up 2 whole mana points in cost, which seems pretty drastic to me. Watch my arena videos. You'll see how much I hate getting mind controlled, especially when you have 3 or 4 mind controls against you. But I don't want the card to get nerfed into oblivion. I like the card and I think it has a place in the game. 2 mana might actually be enough to completely nerf it into oblivion. So that's kind of scary in my opinion. So in short, Blizzard is already stretching its great power to try to manipulate a sense of balance to the game. Since it's beta, this is really to be expected, but I was wondering what everyone else thought of these changes. So this week's viewer question is, what do you think the most drastic change Blizzard has made to the game so far is? And that's if you're playing. And if you don't have access yet, what do you think of Blizzard balancing for entry-level players instead of competitive level play? Please leave your comments in the comment section below, and I'll pick a few to read for the next episode. I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Weekly Coin. If you'd like to send in a suggestion for future topics or have questions you'd like me to answer, please send an email to the.weekly.coin@gmail.com. Also be sure to check out my recent channel update for a LOL WoW RP or WoW, I said that wrong, some kind of giveaway that I'm doing. Go check that out. It's probably the easiest giveaway you'll ever meet because all you have to do is comment. Please like, favorite, subscribe, all that jazz if you like the series. And as always, you keep it salty, Internet.